Order.
And so 8:19, we'll call the meeting to order and we'll welcome Candace as a new legal counsel.
We've also got Nadine Ziegler from Hudson Russ on the call. We use Hudson Russ for our pilots.
Morning,
Incentives.
morning.
So with that, Dylan is here. Yep, for that privilege of the board. Good morning. All right, moving on, Kaylee sent out the meetings from the January meeting. Sorry, Kaylee sent out the minutes from the January meeting last week. Did everyone have a chance to look them over? Any questions or clarification? Motion to approve. For a second. Got it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Financial reports were also shared last week.
Yes, and these, we did have a finance committee meeting, so I won't go into the expenditures now that there's very many anymore. With the new organization. Can you scroll down? Kaylee? Profit and loss, again, not too much to report here. As always, in December, January, you see a huge number coming through on the pilot payments pass through line. That's when we invoice, since these are accrual basis. When we invoice for all of the pilots, you see them hit on that line. And then when they actually get paid in, you'll see that go away. So mostly in January, some go into February a little bit. Other notables on the revenues and fees line, we did invoice and then in January received our number 3 wind payment, pilot administrative fee payment for the year. Those are only really notables. You'll see, as we all know, everything's not going to track the budget because we budgeted for a full year of staff being under IDA, overhead being under IDA. It's not.
Is that completely moved over, Cheyenne? The payroll services?
Except for Brittany.
Is that what's showing up in the other report? And is that the retirement hers is as well?
Yeah.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I caught that.
So that'll end at the end of February, when she's fully back. No, it might bridge into March because of the pay period. Yeah, the naturally Lewis will have to hire her. Not sure if they want to. Any questions on that report? Okay. Yeah, I was telling Kaylee, I'm super excited. This is the last month you guys have to deal with me running these or leading these meetings from a staff perspective. Next month is just content and you'll get your birthday back. On the balance sheet, again, the pilot payments hit hard in the accounts receivable line. But if you ignore that line, most of the other stuff stays pretty stable. The only notable again is the increase in checking and savings, and again, that's the number 3 wind administrative fee payment for the year. Any questions on financials?
All right, if there's no questions, we take the motion to approve. Mackenzie. Second, Gagnon, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
The loan fund status report, this is a quarterly report that I usually get out to the loan committee, but it's good for the full board to see it. Our receivables are very low because the tax check has paid off their bridge loan that we provided them. They paid that off in November-ish. Tugville Argos and Roasters is paying ahead on their loan, so we don't have any receivables with them. And those are the only two outstanding loans that we have, so once we get those moved over to the LCDC. I mean, as it is, we have about 160,000 available to loan, once we get them moved over to LCDC and combined. It'll start to be a more sizable loan fund, and hopefully we can gain some traction, being able to get some bigger loans that people need. And bridge some grant financing with that. You can scroll down a bit. As you all know, and have been so graceful about second place Beer Co. or Backyardigans, they're in a grace period, so we don't have any receivables there. Black River Valley Natural and Snow Ridge for their groomer are always on time, been great on making their payments on those IDA owned equipment pieces. Any questions on that? That one doesn't need approval, it's just for your information.
Hey, whatever happened, maybe it's not the right time, but there's a store that opened up, it was in Carthage. There was a couple that was renovating the store. You guys know about that? Maybe so, but what was it called?
It is a city.
Randall's,
What?
Randall's,
Yes, whatever happened? Like, are they doing well, cause they.
they haven't opened yet,
Okay,
but, there's, yeah,
okay,
we can fill you in.
okay,
Because they had it was an NCA loan, right?
Yeah, through AEDC.
AEDC, yes.
Yeah, AEDC loan, they received a launch LC grant to purchase inventory and get everything ready to go. And they just kind of they're having some trouble with their CFO
okay,
in order to open, because they have steps to get in
gotcha.
and they weren't grandfathered in, so they have to do some renovations in order to get.
I couldn't remember if it was one of our loans or if they got a different.
There's a CDBG microenterprise grant.
Okay, yeah.
Alright, any other questions related to financials? Loan report. Thanks for that update. Alright, moving on to the environmental.
So Armor Environmental is an arm of the company that this one's been a while in developing, the old, if you're really old, for Eric's time, so. The older.
Ancient.
I said you could bring me back, so. The old HDK site in Harrisville, and then Dink owned it for a bit. As a recycling type facility. Dink decided to move on and sold the property to Armor Environmental, which is a subsidiary or arm of Get Her Done, which is based in Buffalo. They've done recycling of tires and all sorts of things. They've worked through their site plan process with Diana. And we have those documents. They have their application in for incentives to develop the facility more, get equipment and everything there so they can do what they want to do. They're still working with the DEC on the permitting, which has been a huge headache for them, considering how easy Dink went in. They're a little frustrated with how hard it's been for them to get their DEC permitting. But Nadine, do you want to walk us through the resolutions we have?
Yeah, we just have the public hearing resolution authorizing the IDA to hold a public hearing for this. That's the first resolution, the public hearing, just authorizing the holding of the public hearing for the project.
Okay, so process wise, we have to have the resolution for the public hearing, and we hold that late February, probably by the time we get it noticed and everything. And then probably can't get it on a March agenda for approval just because of timing. It would probably go on the April agenda for approval of the incentives. This has gone through the finance committee. It's as a reminder because it's taken so long.
Do we need a roll call on this?
Yes.
Alright, so the resolution for a public hearing on the armor environmental project. There was. So we still need a motion, we have a motion. For a second. Darlene, any discussion? Alright, roll call. Gardner. Mackenzie. Herb.
Yes.
Darlene. Joe, yes. Jessica, excuse. Motion carries. Now, let's see here.
Yeah, so we do.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So now that you've authorized the public hearing, we will send the notice around for comments and then we'll get it published in the paper and send it to the taxing entities. And there's a 10-day notice, which Cheyenne's very well aware of. So you could have it by the end of February, so you can do the approving resolution at the March meeting. And there's no pilot deviation for this, is there?
No,
Okay,
So now thank you, Nadine, now the secret resolution.
yeah, so this is basically just saying that we're, that the town has done the seeker. And that we're just going to go with what they had.
right. We are just, we have no indication. The IDA does not know of any reason why we would not accept the town's decision for the secret determination.
So a motion to approve the secret, or second. Got it. Any discussion? Got it. Roll.
Oh, yeah.
Mackenzie, yeah. Yes. We're sorry guys, going the wrong order. Joe, yes. Jessica, excuse. Motion carries, thank you.
Is Jessica absent?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
all right, Nadine, you're welcome to stay on, but I don't think we have any more business that relates to the work we're having you do, so that's up to you.
great. No, I'll get off and hope to see you in about 2 weeks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Have a great day.
You
Thanks,
too.
Nadine.
Bye. Alright, moving on, Victorian Lake.
So Victorian Link is our pilot that covers the level medical center associates. And Lavo. And their pilot is on their final year this year. That one is a little bit goofy because their taxation for county, town, and school is 5% ahead of where it is for the village. I don't know whatever happened there, but they're at 95% taxation anyway. But they're going through a merger / reorg, and they wanted to terminate their pilot before that happens, just to have it over and done with. So they submitted a letter. It was an actual piece of paper, and I forgot to scan it and attach it. But we just need to approve accepting that early termination.
Have a motion. A second. Mackenzie, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries, thank you. Alright, another budget.
Oh, fun stuff. Finance committee did have a chance to review this in more detail than we'll go into here. So the fiscal year for the IDA is June 1 through May 31. And the ABO requires us to submit the budget 90 days before the end of our fiscal year, so that's why we're looking at this so early. But there aren't too many unknowns for the IDA. with the reorg, so it's pretty straightforward. You've got 3 columns on the budget to be approved for last year, or the current year we're in, where we're projecting to land, which those are gonna be off again. And then proposed for 24-25. And then on the charges for services, those are pretty well known, except for any miscellaneous pilots that might come in. Under agency fees, that's all of our administrative fees, and with the wind projects, they were spread out over a number of years. So the one you see dropping off is Roaring Brook Wind. They completed their IDA administrative fee payments. So we won't see those again next year. And we're being a little bit more conservative on the miscellaneous pilots. We just didn't see a lot of solar come through this year, so I don't wanna bank on that. I'm not sure if that'll start moving or not as we get more infrastructure built. Scroll down and interrupt me at any point if you guys have questions. Loans I've always hated that we have to include interest from those on our financials because it's not money we can touch, it just goes back into the loan funds, so recognizing it with revenue is silly to me, but that's what that ABO required of us. Those should be zeros as we get those moved over to the LCDC. Anyway. Installment sales, we will recognize interest on a bunch of those. The one point I want to talk about on these is the IDA bank accounts interest. So obviously interest rates are really high and we're using New York class. We'll see at least $45,000 in interest this year. We only ever budgeted for less than 1,000 because as a quasi-governmental entity, we didn't have the ability to earn a lot of interest. I bumped that back down to 5,000 for the coming year because we don't know what interest rates are going to do, and I'd rather be conservative and not pay that money we don't know if we're going to get. But if there's discussion on that. Yeah, you got it.
No, they're gonna start coming down, but not to the point where it's gonna, we'll probably be somewhere like around 20, but I agree with you, to be conservative rather than expect it, yeah.
And then we've got the brewery in Trinity property coming back online with making payments. Other under operating revenue, those we've got all zeroed out because they're transitioning to after Lewis and LCDC. Scroll down. What's our operating revenue? Just under 330,000. Going. CDBG, you see, and this is not budgeting forward, but just as an FYI, we had budgeted for a third $300,000 CDBG grant fund coming in this fiscal year, and we decided to apply for that under the LCDC. So the 270 would have been the actual loan portion of that. 30,000 of that being interest or administrative. That went away, but we are still seeing the grants come through from the last round, so that's why you've got a 77,000 in what we expect for the remainder of this year. You can scroll down. All right, so you see most of our overhead go away in terms of salaries and benefits, professional service contracts. Remain roughly the same as we expected this year, but way up from last year because that's where the Naturally Lewis contract is falling under. I don't love that it falls under that because the way we've got it structured, it's more of a capital expenditure. But that's the way we have to recognize it, so that's where it's going for now. Can scroll down, rents, utilities, a lot of the overhead goes away. We did leave $100,000 in the economic development projects and programs, just thinking that there will be projects that will still fall under the IDA specifically rather than Naturally Lewis, and we have the ability to put it there. And that's all. So we are projecting a loss again. Because of the way we've structured the Naturally Lewis administrative or service contracts, We will see a loss there, but it's a known loss because we're eating into the kind of the reserves we've had to get some of that administrative money over to Naturally Lewis, so that Naturally Lewis can administer the loans for the pilots. Essentially.
Okay.
I have one question, the line 68 with the staff service contract.
Yeah.
Why is proposed lower than?
Because 2 payments hit in this fiscal year, so we had the Q4. And then the whole year.
The other thing, contract, if I'm wrong, but the other thing that'll affect that number year to year is what we have for pilots to administer. So if we have pilots drop off, that, you know, that it's they're mature, that, and we don't have to administer them anymore, than that changes the formula of what our contract is for staff services.
Right, because it's 90% of. IDA fees that are paid in that year, so as these big wind payments are still coming in. And they will for just 2 more years. But Roaring Brook dropped off, so you see that step down a little bit, plus 90% of this big amortization of the rest of our pilots that we just have paid already on their administrative fee. So if we see big ones come in, we'll see another blip up. And then it'll drop back down to what the amortization over the life of the pilots is.
Thank you for explaining.
There's also a tab down there for 3-year projections. That we have to submit to the ADO as well, and again, you see. That they're pretty steady besides the administrative fees. And charges for services dropping off a little bit. This stuff doesn't matter too much, we just have to submit something to the state at this point. If you scroll down to the bottom, Keely. You do see again, we're projecting negatives, that's a known, that's getting the administration. Over to Naturally Lewis through the service contracts.
Is that also positive on their side?
Yeah. Any questions or concerns?
You for your work on this. Having to submit it so far in advance is always a challenge, but you know, we've done a lot to, you know, through this whole transition to project out several years to try to understand what this is gonna look like, so I don't think there's any surprises here from the discussions we had through the transition process.
Right, and then maybe you should have highlighted, as we went through the financials, the IDA is sitting on $3 million. Of money, so these negatives are a little bit less.
Any other questions? Motion to approve the 2024 or 25, right?
Yeah.
Budget that's in next to the state. Motion by Guy, second by Bird, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries, thank you.
Joe, question just came out of my mind, it's helping go to that motion, was there any, I think there was some thought changing the fiscal year.
Yeah, we backed away from that one, we decided to reorg instead. It's something we could revisit in the future. Reports out of Jefferson County doing that, not been exciting.
From them or from like the ADO?
No, Jefferson County,
It's that headache,
I think was their idea.
because naturally it was an LCDC are full call 31.
Yeah, everybody else is still through.
We looked into it for a while, remember?
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's staggered, right, for staff.
yeah, it is a little nice to have it staggered, but as we have less in the IDA, it doesn't matter. Having for audit elements wouldn't matter as much.
For the future.
Or the new finance operations.
All right, report,
You guys all had this and can read it as you like, I'll just talk about some highlights. Village of Lavilla, as I'm sure you've all seen by now, finally won the $10 million DRI grant from New York State. And our office was very much involved with that, with county planning and the village of Laville, so that was exciting to finally see that work come to fruition. I think a lot of that was a lot of what we were doing was in alignment with what the state would like to see in terms of the projects that were included in the application, like housing and we've seen the village of Laville, the downtown already experience some revitalization, so just piggybacking on that. That was nice, we had good representation in Lake Placid to receive that award from the governor. So more work on that, we'll be updating the web page for that grant lives on Natalie Lewis's website, so we'll be updating that, including an infographic on next steps at a very high level, and reaching out to the project applicants for next steps, because if we've learned anything from Lions Falls near forward grant, it's that it's kind of wait for the state, and then all of a sudden you have like a month to turn around and show that you have your funding or your financing in place for these projects. So we're going to strongly encourage them to get going on that so that they don't have to try to turn that around in a month.
I apologize if this has already been discussed and I just didn't sink in. Does the finances for that go all through or any through Naturally Lewis?
No,
I didn't think so, but
no,
when you talked about that, that being prepared with the finances in order, I didn't question whether my understanding was correct.
yeah,
I was just gonna say that, the last bullet point, I think the key here for us is. The leveraging resources in our loan fund and our discussions there about, the offer bridge loan. Or providing other. Help to businesses that can get them through the process, so.
Exactly.
And I think it should be highlighted too, the money the county put in. Some of these, building. Revitalization programs, like it's. It's one of those things that never, or it's always beneficial anytime you go for a grant or anything to show what's already been done.
Mhm.
And what investment's already been made towards it, that you're not just asking for, this handout without any effort on. Going into it, so.
So it's accurate to say, because I've had people, ask questions about Naturally Lewis's involvement.
mhm,
And so would it be accurate to state that we are positioned well to support the moving parts that will accomplish the full project?
yeah, and there'll be a committee established to work through the grant process that will likely, I would hope, be a part of. Especially in the village, this doesn't have the capacity to administer it by themselves, so. County planning and Natalie Lewis, I'm sure will step up and provide our help.
Thank you.
Another thing that you guys probably haven't heard much about yet, but the Stevens block, or we kind of referred to it as the Dollar General Apartments, it's the Dollar General building plus the 3-story building next to it. The that has been working to get their financing and stack their financing to renovate that. Get some new apartments in the 3-story part of that. It's incredible inside, there's like a foot of pigeon poop that needs to be remediated, but It's like somebody closed the door in 1960 and it just, it's remained the same. But he's got. A Restore New York grant, the county's been helping with remediation on that and getting all the surveys done to get that positioned. They received a facade improvement grant from the county again, a vacant property revitalization grant from LCDC. So again, all of these things that we're stacking in place, we connected them. He was interested in putting a mural on the front, so we connected him with somebody who can do that. It's a really cool project that, again, we're using all of the tools we have to get them there and it's in the DRI area. So I think that's 6 to 8 apartments that'll go in there. Shoring up the back and putting a lift in and all the things that building needs, so it's gonna be awesome.
Shai, do you guys have, like before pictures of all these proposed renovations?
We really need to get better at that. Usually if it's an application process, we ask them for pictures, but they're.
Dark and dingy. Well, that's kind of the point, right? They are.
Well, I'm just curious too, even if it doesn't get broadcast everywhere, because after touring the Hershey building message ups and then above double play, like it's really interesting, even though they're kind of gross.
Yeah.
All the pigeons and everything, but it's really interesting to look at and I think it's worth documenting, I guess, the progress.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm not sure if they're ordered yet or not, but the county, some of the state programs require there to be signage if they're participating in the grant. The county's done a good job of getting their facade and streetscape improvement program out there. We're working on signage to make sure that when we're doing projects, that we get some kind of recognition. For the hard work the boards have done and staff to get these things in place.
Is it an identified what type of apartments these are intended?
These are gonna be market rate. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited about that project.
There will be a list, so old folks can get up to them.
Eric's looking for downtown, closer down positives. They're close to walking distance for Friday. Exactly.
Means bad, I'm smelling Tony's sometimes.
No.
The only other note I'll make on this is, Echo Lewis staffing. We are in the process of scheduling our first round of interviews for the finance operations manager, the February 12th. Yeah, 4 that we definitely want to interview, and then if we don't come to a solid conclusion or if the applications are still open. If nobody else comes in, it's a home run, we'll start with those 4 and see where it goes. But we've had at least 20 apply for the position. So it's been nice to be able to be choosing.
Well, that's great, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And some good ones. It's gonna be really interesting to see who lands at the top. And that's all I've got for highlights there, unless somebody has questions on anything over there.
Do we have an update about the letter?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll do that in the big session or.
Yeah.
You think? I put pilot education under correspondence because we did have some correspondence from superintendent of the town of Martinsburg. It's basically an annual correspondence saying where my pilot monies. And I refer them back to their document, the pilot. The pilots are a little bit staggered in terms of when they're due to be paid in. But the process is the pilots get paid to the IDA, so that's all of their tax for the year. And then all of the pilot agreements are written that the IDA has 30 days from the due date to get those paid back out to the taxing jurisdictions. So most of the wind projects are due 1/31. So the IDA has 30 days to receive those payments and get them to the appropriate accounts. match up with our billing cycle, because we don't run checks every day. Get a second signature on them because they are large checks, anything over 5,000 needs a second signature. And then get them back distributed out to the taxing jurisdictions, so that's why the 30 days is kind of looking there. Also, not all payments are timely, so sometimes that cuts into that 30 days. So March 1st is the date for most of them. I just wanted to give you that little bit of education because I know this person is somewhat vocal about the fire, the perceived fire. But we've also kind of been more backwards in the learning process to get those payments a year earlier than was contractually required, so. I was comfortable standing our grounds and March 1st is the date. If we get it done before that, great, it's just, March 1st is the date that it's required to get out.
Was there any explanation of the fire? I mean, like, what I'm thinking is this because they need that for operating expenses, or they need that because they're seeing what we're all getting from NY class, and that's revenues that they're missing out?
Right, they wanted to invest in treasury bonds by February 1st, which would have been a 1 acre run, those payments.
Now, that's helpful to understand.
Rest of the fire.
Emergency.
No, she said, she
Yeah,
just.
not a real fire.
No, no.
Sorry,
Perceived fire.
Yes, right, so it wasn't, Roaring Brook was a little bit more understandable because that one dragged on so long that people had budgeted for their money and their operating expenses. This one wasn't, it was, they wanted to be more interest, which is understandable,
I think in the scheme of, like any business or anything, having a 30-day turnaround seems reasonable to me, and that's what's in our contracts and. So,
It goes back a long time. It's not new.
No, but like I said, this isn't annual conversation, but. Since I know Eric was presented with the information and it's not on our board, I wanted to at least start working. Be educated on the matter.
Yeah, I got a phone message from the town supervisor.
Who is involved in economic development. So, again, it's important for us as economic developers to understand the process. And just one more piece, and this isn't the prettiest, but I did want to get a little bit of related information out. Can we go to the 2024 pilot population? That's the nuts and bolts of how we figure all that out, but if you go to the distribution tab. Zoom out a little bit so you can see it. This should be. Yeah, here. It's a bummer. So this is, I guess, just one chart for now. And I'd like to put more in our annual report.
Is that 2 colors?
It's supposed to be, when I came over to Google. Yeah, so this is, you see the listing off to the side of how much money in 2024 is going out to each of the taxing jurisdictions that are involved in pilots. And then just a chart form of the same thing, broken down into just county, schools, towns and villages. Again, most of these pilots are not taking place in villages, at least the energy ones that are huge. So there's not a lot in the villages, and it's not every town and every village that has a pilot. But the county gets the bulk of, or a bigger share of the pilot revenues. 40% versus the towns. The schools get about 2 million versus the county at 1.9 basically, so almost equal shares at 40 and 37%. Then towns come in a little less than that at 1.1 million so 22%, and then villages, again, that's just a couple of small projects, are at 52,000. So this thought that the grand scheme of things, that's the impact that these pilots are having in the community. Any questions on that? I had another table, but Google doesn't like it apparently. Anyway, we'll work towards getting more of that into our annual reports to show what the pilot is doing.
And just a reminder, I mean, if unless we deviate from our standard UTEP, it's essentially based on the tax rates of the three entities in terms of how the pie gets distributed, so. As you know, percentage of total tax rate changes. You know, it's still something where you know, to me, it should be like 60% county and the other 40% split between the schools and the county or something like that. You know, we've seen how this gets used, but at this point, it's under our current, where it's just based on those tax rates unless the parties agree. Deviation, so. But this is also the type of things that factor into our work towards doing, having the economic development fund started with the number 3 project and having funds go into that, which are, you know, administered by the LCDC to have other opportunities other than funds all be going into the pilot to reinvest that in the county, so.
And that's all I have, unless we want to go into a big section to discuss, ish proceedings.
Yeah, you know, given the nature of the content regarding our correspondence with the ADO in terms of the way the transition took place from naturally Lewis to, or from with all of the entities to forming naturally Lewis, and correspondence with our legal counsel on that. We would go into executive session for an update.
Before we do that, do you have any update on, your board member and whether that's been posted out?
Not from there, yeah.
Okay.
Probably March.
Question. Right. Do we have an interest in executive session for the motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead and make the motions. Second by Kenzie. All in favor? Motion carries, we're in executive.
video clientele. Meeting, you should stay in
I was actually gonna today and I got distracted and I had it pulled up.
You did say that, you said
Yeah.
let's get started. with
Yeah,
this.
and I had it pulled up and.
All right, he's not doing it.
Yeah. I know, right, so we're,
And I have to say this.
we're back at it, back into the meeting, we discussed the correspondence, related to the ABO, questions around the, actually Lewis, and no actions were taken. And with that, we don't have any other agenda items, so unless there's something, anyone else, then we would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Dagan, second,
I'll second.
Mackenzie, all in favor,
Aye.
meeting adjourned.
Who's up from morning beers?